Hello, I'm the Reverend Robert Thomas Malthus. I was born on the 13th of February, 1766 in Dorking, Surrey. I entered Jesus College, Cambridge, in 1784, and I was ordained a minister of the Church of England in 1788. In 1796, I became a curate in the sleepy town of Albury. My best-known work was the pamphlet essay on population, which I published in 1798. In it, I argue that unchecked population growth would outstrip the food supply available. Actual population growth is kept in line with food supply growth by positive checks such as starvation, disease, murder, homosexuality, and the like, which elevate the death rate. Preventive checks, such as postponement of marriage, keep down the birth rate. Both are characterized by misery and vice. Actual population growth, however, always has a tendency to push above the food supply. Any attempt to improve the condition of the lower classes by increasing their incomes or improving agricultural productivity would be fruitless. The extra means of subsistence will be completely absorbed by an induced increase in population. I favored moral restraint, including late marriage and sexual abstinence by the lower classes as a check on population growth. As a result of my beliefs, I was called a prophet of doom and an enemy of the working class. I suffered from a cleft palate that, as you can hear, affected my speech. I died, alas, on the 29th of December, 1834.
As stated in that excerpt, during his lifetime Malthus wrote a variety of essays explaining his theories on the economy. The main one was an essay on the principle of population. He originally wrote it to counter opinions of writer William Godwin. In it, he argued that while human population increased exponentially, food production increased more slowly, placing severe limits on human productive behavior. He opposed welfare handouts to the poor because he believed they added to the pressure of price and population. He also encouraged the abolition of poor laws, explaining that if the impoverished were given more money or housing assistance, they would simply produce more children, which would lead to more population, creating more despair in the world. His proposed solution to these issues was presented by two checks. The positive check would raise the death rate by increasing hunger, disease, and war, and the preventative checks would lower birth rates by advocating abortion, birth control, postponement of marriage, and celibacy. Thomas Malthus reasoned that there is poverty and starvation as a means of God teaching the virtues of hard work and virtuous behavior. He stated that evil exists in the world to create activity, not despair. Relating population to wages and inflation, Malthus explained that when the population of labor grows faster than the production of food, the cost of living goes up, causing wages to fall. He also stated that limiting birth rates, as opposed to increasing death rates, would result in higher standards of living and would increase economic stability. In addition to his principle of population, Thomas Malthus also wrote several other works explaining his theories on the economy. In the present high price of provisions, he argues that the poor laws drive up the price of daily necessities by giving more money to the poor and taking away from money that would stabilize the economy. In Observations on the Effects of the Corn Laws, which regulated the price of grain, he argued that acquiring corn from cheap foreign resources would reduce distress among the working class. The nature of rent, described by Malthus's friendly rival David Ricardo as a kind of negative money, states that rent cannot exist except in the case of surplus, and proposes it as a kind of surplus. The policy restricting the importation of grain actually recanted his previous remark that buying from foreign resources was good, and stated that foreign laws increased taxes and that domestic production would actually ensure British self-sufficiency in the food production department. In his Principles of Political Economy, and his definitions of political economy. The concept of general glut or surplus is defended, which contradicts his principle of population, which states that scarcity is key. While most of his works present a theory of untreatable scarcity, 3 of them offer a theory of surplus: the nature of rent, principles of political economy, and definitions of political economy. These demonstrate surplus, or an abundance of goods, as opposed to scarcity, a lack of abundance, as something beneficial. Thomas Malthus offered an evolutionary social theory of population dynamics. These are summarized in 8 major points. 1. Subsistence, or the support of oneself at a minimum level, limits population levels. 2. When the means of subsistence increases, the population increases. These points demonstrate that population will either increase or decrease depending on how well society can provide for itself. 3. Population pressures stimulate increases in productivity. 4. Increases in productivity stimulate population growth. These mean that as population increases or decreases, productivity will do the same, and if productivity increases or decreases, population will do the same. 5. Population requires strong checks to maintain potential rate of growth, meaning the number of population needs to be kept on record. 6. Individual decisions, such as starting a family, determine how big or small population and production is going to be. 7. Checks come into operation when population exceeds subsistence levels. 8. Nature of these checks will have significant effect on poverty. These last 2 points demonstrate that when the population goes above the ability of society to provide for itself, and it is kept unchecked, it will lead to starvation and more poverty. Malthus was extremely criticized on a personal level. He was berated as a priest, called a plagiarist, and accused of practicing population control by having 11 children, which he only had 3. He was criticized by economists Nassau William Sr., Henry Charles Carey, Karl Marx, and even communist Vladimir Lenin. Marx argued that what Malthus saw as the problem of pressure of population on means of production, he saw as the other way around. Marx saw it as the pressure of production on the means of population. Malthusian theories influenced many people and even some laws. These include the withdrawal of a bill that extended relief to the poor, inspired a census in Britain, and inspired the passage of the Poor Law Amendment Act, which reformed the country's poverty relief system. Malthus even influenced John Maynard Keynes, who modeled his theories in Keynesian economics after Malthus's theories. Thomas Malthus played a big role in the development of Charles Darwin's and Alfred Russel Wallace's ideas. His iron law of population stated that competition would be created by the fact that population grows faster than resources. Darwin and Wallace both drew their resources of biological fitness, or survival of the fittest, from this idea. And now, Thomas Malthus himself will answer some questions on his theories.
Good day to you all. I am Thomas Malthus. I come from Surrey and I attended the University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom. I'm Professor of Modern History and Political Economy in East India College. I've written many books and pamphlets, such as essays on principles of populations and political economy. Questions, anyone?
Yes, Sir Malthus, on the essay of the principle of population, how could you say that the population growth is affecting the world? Did not the Almighty God say that we must reproduce and be fruitful upon this earth?
Well, yes, it is true. I did not go against the will of God, but the power of population is greater than the earth's resources can provide. Thus, the population remains unchecked. The increase in food supply will never keep pace with the increase of population. Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much, sir.
Next question. Hello, Sir Malthus. I was reading some of your work and I stumbled upon one of your theories called the Malthusian law of population. I could not grasp the concept in what you were trying to explain. Will you please explain for me? Well, yes. It is simple. As this Malthusian law theory explains that we must control the population by controlling the birth rate and letting natural calamities take place, such as war, disease, poverty, and starvation. These things are inevitable. I suggest the one way we can overcome population growth is by late marriages and prudent ones, as means to overcome poverty by overpopulation.
Charles Darwin said,
Yes.
Your essays are very inspiring, and I grew fond of your explanations. Perhaps I can hear the words from the master himself?
Well, there are no solutions to the growth of overpopulation. It just seems that the world is growing bigger and bigger, and for that there will be no resources to feed its people. We must decrease population no matter how it may seem fit, even if it means leaving to starvation for certain individuals. I mean, just think of it. If the poor are allowed to reach a higher standard of living, they would restrain the population growth. Helping the poor would only put an economic restraint on yourself, for you could use those resources for something else.